film later on to see if they can actually see Venus. They may actually be able to report it to us visually.
In terms of timing, how are we doing now?
In terms of timing, we've got about 24 minutes to go. 24 minutes and a few seconds.
24 minutes, your clock's a bit more accurate than me. Okay, 24 minutes to go. Philippa.
Well, thank goodness for the RAF Hercules, that's all I can say. Still, the atmosphere is fantastic down here on the ground. And I want to catch up with the action at Radio 1 Club up the road because Emma B's been there most of the morning. Hi, Emma, can you hear me? Hello, she's running away.
Hello, we're here, yes, in the back of our very showbiz Winnebago at the Radio 1 Roadshow, joined by Chris and Neil, Pet Shop Boys. Hello.
Hello.
It's very exciting. We're just watching the eclipse on the little monitor that we've got. It's genuinely.
It is, even though you can't see anything here apart from cloud. Watching on the monitor is very exciting.
Now, it is a very exciting day. Obviously, the Radio 1 Roadshow, but there's a particularly exciting reason why you're here today. It's because we're going to get the exclusive play. You're going to do the first performance of the song that you've written, especially for Eclipse.
Yeah, Radio 1 asked us to write something to be played during the eclipse, and so we've written a piece of music that has a short intro, and then the music changes, and for 2 minutes 2 seconds you get a special piece of music for the totality, and then as the moon moves away from the sun, the music gets faster and changes. Do you want to hear a bit of it?
Let's hear a little bit of it now.
Press start. Very cosmic.
Very cosmic. Very cosmic. Is that all we're getting?
That's all you're getting, I'm afraid.
Okay, all right then. So if you want to hear more of that piece of music, you're going to have to tune in to Radio 1 about 11, and that's going to play all the way through the eclipse.
Play all the way through.
How did you do that? Did you time yourself to 2.5 minutes so that you knew when it was going to get slower or faster or?
Yeah, we knew exactly how long to make the music. We just tapped into some cosmic rays that were coming from the universe and projected it onto tape.
Okay, right. Now, apart from this record as well, you've got a new record and a new album coming out.
Yeah, we've got a new single in September called New York City Boy, and then the album Nightlife comes out in October, and then we're actually doing a world tour, and so we're going to be playing in Britain, touring in Britain for the first time for 8 years in December.
Of course, exactly.
And we're doing a big show with a fabulous set and the whole thing. It's going to be great.
That's something to look forward to, definitely.
Well, we're looking forward to it anyway, yeah.
Exactly. So, Radio 1 Roadshows, it's raining today.
Yeah, I've done it always.
I know. How likely was that to happen, though, on the day of the eclipse when we're supposed to be seeing everything? It just absolutely chucks it down with rain.
It's an English summer day.
Isn't it just?
I know, it reminds you of nice summer holidays in England.
Exactly, but I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
I think it's going to be very exciting anyway.
The crowd are well up.
I don't know why it's not dark yet, though. I can't work it out.
It's because we've got lights on.
No.
That's it from us, the Pet Shop Boys.
Thank you, Radio 1. Dr. Mark Porter, I mean, in those places where they can see the sun, there's less and less of the sun to see, so is it getting safer to look at?
No, basically. I mean, the sun is so intense. I think people don't really understand the suns that are involved here. If you can see any fraction of the sun, it's enough to potentially damage your eyes. I mean, these solar viewers that everyone's talking about actually reduce the amount of transmitted light, in some cases, to around 1/1,000,000th of the light intensity, and that just sort of puts it into perspective, really.
But, I mean, there's absolutely no danger here, I would have...
Well, unfortunately, if we could see the sun full stop, it would be very
eye
nice.
sockets waterlogged if you look that way. But in some places there must be, you know, thinnish cloud, which must tempt people to look at it. What's the state of play
Those reduce the intensity quite a lot, but still, if in doubt, you should be using these. As you can see from our pictures, you can see the cloud going across. When from Newcastle we saw there were some of the pictures of the cloud going across. Please always use the viewers or indirect viewing. And the most important thing to remember, the only time to look at it that is actually safe is totality.
Mark Porter, thanks very much indeed. Well, the one place that we can actually see the sun in the southwest is in Alderney, and Jamie Theakston's there. Jamie.
Jamie. Yes, thanks very much, Michael. The weather does have a tendency to ruin big occasions in this country. It may help our cricketers, but it's not helping us much today. But we've got a pretty good view here in Alderney. Chris, explain to us exactly what's happening now.
Well, the cloud does seem to be breaking up into patches, and occasionally, just as has happened now, we're just getting a break in the clouds, and there's a cheer goes up from the crowds occasionally when they get to see something. So things are looking up.
Now we've got there must be what 250 astronomers here today. They obviously know something that we don't. They've come here. I mean, this obviously is a good place to come, right?
Well, you'd hope if they know where to come, then that's the right place. It's a bit of a lottery, though. About a year or so ago, when we were planning where to go, everybody was buying the same kind of lottery ticket. The weather's a real uncertainty, and I hope we've got a winning one today. It looks like it might just be so.
Right. Now it's quite interesting that it seems it's almost mirroring what happened in Giggleswick. the last time we had an eclipse. I mean, it was much the same then, right?
That's right, there were clouds and rain for a couple of weeks beforehand, and the Astronomer Royal at the time, Frank Dyson, was tearing his hair out, thinking that he was going to be scuppered. Now, we've had clouds here up until the moment that the eclipse has started. We might just get that crucial break just after 11 o'clock that allows us to see it. The Astronomer Royal, traditionally, as far as UK eclipses are concerned, is a good guy to hang out with if you want to see one. Now, I thought he was going to be here. I'm told he's over in Falmouth, so we might just be more lucky this year.
Right, now Patrick's got heavy cloud. There's heavy cloud also in Cornwall. We seem to have much thinner cloud. What will that mean that when we get totality, we'll get a complete darkness and they won't? How does that work?
You'll still get the total darkness. In fact, even with a cloudy sky like today, this kind of wall of darkness that's projected onto the top of the clouds will rush towards us in the most dramatic way in the next half an hour or so. So it will still be very spectacular here.
Right, OK, well, excitement building here in Alderney. The cloud's thinning. We're actually getting a pretty good view here, so we're all very eagerly anticipating totality. It should happen in about 20 minutes. Back to Cornwall.
Thank you very much, Jamie. It looks nicer there, but it is starting to get darker here, isn't it, Francisco?
Yes, we can see that the shadow of the moon is nearly here. It's only 20 minutes to go, but we can see a bit dark, and we can see a bit of blue patch sky there. It looks already dark.
Well, when the moon does finally sit exactly over the disk of the sun, it's then that we can see things that are totally invisible normally, hopefully, like the corona, the mass of gas that leaps from the sun's surface. Now, I gather early astronomers used to think that the corona was part of the moon.
That's right. Until last century, people realized that the corona is part of the external atmosphere of the sun, and since then, our knowledge of the sun has been growing and growing all the time. I have here a few pictures. This is the kind of landscape that we see during totality. And when we zoom into this area, well, we can see here planets like Venus and Jupiter in this eclipse that we saw in Bolivia some time ago.
So eclipses have been hugely important to astronomers then?
Very much so. And look at this. This picture is our picture from Bolivia, an eclipse in 1994. Here we see the structure of the solar corona very clearly. When we see this kind of shapes, we can identify magnetic poles of the sun here, like as if it was a giant magnet here with magnetic poles here, and the corona is flowing out of the sun in this direction. We learn a lot about how the sun is behaving, and in a way about how the stars are behaving.
But there are huge benefits to studying these kind of mysteries from the ground as well, aren't there?
There is. All these pictures are taken from the ground. This is with a more powerful telescope to look at the solar prominences. We may see some of them in a few minutes' time. If the sun is very active, we see these huge flames of gas, hydrogen and helium flying away from the sun in thousands of kilometers. I mean, the Earth will be a tiny little thing here compared at that scale.
Is there anything in particular that you're hoping to learn from today?
Well, yes, what solar physicists are looking for is this kind of interaction between these flames and the solar corona, which looks white or bluish in this picture. The solar corona is very hot, 1 or 2 million degrees, and to the day we don't really know how and what is the mechanism to heat the corona to those very high temperatures. We know that magnetic fields are very important in this mechanism, and this eclipse will throw more light into this problem.
Because the important part of it is that we're all affected by the magnetic fields, am I right?
Oh yes, yes, the solar corona flows all the way from the sun to our Earth, and the Earth has its own magnetic fields, so the magnetic field of the sun and the magnetic field of the Earth are in communication constantly, and we get a lot of information and a lot of particles, a lot of material, a lot of radiation that is funneled by our magnetic fields, producing the aurora borealis, the aurora australis, all these beautiful effects of light in the sky, but also producing storms, producing like magnetic storms that disrupt electric lines, distribution of electric lines. They can knock out satellites and things like that.
We can see an image here of a solar flyby, we call it.
Well, these images are extremely important. They are taken from a satellite like SOHO, the Solar Heliospheric Observatory, and they look at the sun at all times. This is a computer graphic that is representing a kind of flyby on the solar atmosphere when we see sunspots down on the left, and we see these enormous ejections of matter going away from the sun. This is a very highly magnification. It's just a simulation of what the sun will look like.
And today the value is what we're getting from studying it from the ground, which is obviously a lot less expensive than satellites.
It is less expensive. We can use more sophisticated equipment. We can look at the sun with very good computers, very fast computers, very good detectors, and that is complementary to the information that we get from the satellites.
Okay, well, let's hope we learn a lot today. We're not too far away. It's getting much, much closer, isn't it, Michael?
I think it is, actually, Philippa. It feels as though it's gone suddenly darker over the last few moments, because totality is now only, what, 14 minutes away. Millions of people are looking skyward here in Cornwall and Devon, and elsewhere in the country, of course. And as the crowds began to gather around here in Marazion, lots of them around, it felt like a very special morning this morning. The clouds were threatening, but still the eclipse watchers streamed into town. Some had already braved a night at the seaside.
We slept on the beach, camped there till about 2 o'clock, came down at about 12, and then when the sea came right in, we came up to the car.
And why did you do that then?
Because the water came in and we got wet.
In the morning, chill queues developed at the Radio 1 Roadshow.
Oh, we got up at 4:30, the alarm went off. Insane.
By 7, most people were interested in breakfast. In the surrounding campsites, the smell of bacon wafting through the air. And as the day brightened, thousands more arrived, hoping the clouds and the jams would lift for that experience of a lifetime. And here they are, they're all around here, aren't they, John?
Yes, the
filling
crowd's
up on the
really
beach.
building up. Really
And
building up.
It's not my imagination, it really has got a lot darker, hasn't
It is getting considerably darker now, but notice how it's going. It's not like a normal sunset where you get those long shadows as the sun gets towards the horizon. Everything seems to lose its colour and its texture. It really is an incredibly eerie light that we're getting now.
And actually, I suppose to a sense, it's more eerie because it's cloudy.
In fact, it is, because we're not getting as much light coming down to the ground. It's actually getting darker quicker, and because of the way eyes work and so on, we're beginning to adapt in our eyes to what we're seeing around us. And that's what gives it this unearthly, ethereal glow. Well, as you see, you can't describe it. I'm hopeless at describing it.
Well, here we go. No, I mean, I feel the sense of eeriness too. This picture here is from Torbay, so at least there are a few breaks in the cloud over the southwest.
Oh, that's good.
And we're what?
Yes.
We're 11, just under 12 minutes now to totality. That's Torbay, not too far away from us. So it feels really gloomy here. But obviously they can see it through the clouds.
Yes, and let's hope that we can see clouds round about, but some thin cloud you can actually see a remarkable corona through, so we're not giving up hope yet.
So what you're saying is that even though there might be what appears to be total cloud, there is such a strip of brightness when you finally get to the moment of total eclipse, that thin brightness of the corona, that it might shine through. You might be able to see it through cloud.
If you've got thin cloud, then it's amazing what you can see through it. It saved us before. We've just got to hope that it isn't big, thick, lumpy clouds.
So, I mean, you've always seen the full Monty, haven't you, whenever you've been on one of these things?
Yes, I have. 7 times, and so far 7 successes for total eclipses.
And has the atmosphere been a lot different then? Because what's strange, actually, I've been, you know, while Philippa's been doing her stuff and everything, I've been looking at the people out here, and they've been a total sense of different atmosphere there. They were running around beforehand. Now there's very much a sense of just you know.
It's apprehension.
Yeah.
It's apprehension. You imagine if you didn't actually understand what was going on centuries ago, then you would really think that now you would detect something peculiar was up. We're actually beginning to see 1 or 2 seagulls going through a bit of evening ritual.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's now just a few moments past 11 o'clock, and the countdown is approaching, what, totality minus 10 minutes. Then we'll all be plunged into darkness. And I, at least, am ready to believe it. The sky is darkening, and on our pictures from the Hercules, we might be able to see the Venus and Mercury. Can we see the Hercules? It's just breaking up the picture from there. Oh, there it is, yeah. Starting to break up a bit. We'll try and get that a bit better. But we might be able to see Venus and Mercury. Venus we often see, don't we? Mercury's a bit of a rare sight, John.
Yes, we'll only see Mercury during totality, and if the sky is pretty good. Mercury is the innermost planet most people have never actually seen it, and this might be the one opportunity they get.
And Mark Porter, what's actually happening to our eyes in accustoming ourselves to the darkness?
They're fantastic pieces of kit, and they're adjusting to the gloom, and they'll be trying to make the most of whatever lights come in. There are two ways that they do that. One is that they slightly alter the way they perceive the light at the back of the eye. There are some receptors that are better in the dark than others. And the other thing is they open up the shutter. The big iris in the front of the eye starts to open up to get as much light in as possible. We haven't got to the stage where that's happening yet, but it will when it gets dark.
I've been talking about the sense of different atmosphere, but is there a relationship, if you like, between the light we perceive and our mood?
Oh, very much so, but not in a sudden thing like this. But as we approach the shorter winter times, we get much more cases of depression, for instance.
Okay,
we feel better in sunlight.
Okay,
if there was any.
Okay, let's soak up a bit more of that atmosphere and go outside to the picture of the castle there, Mount St. Michael. And on the beach, Philippa.
I'm just having my first real glimmer of excitement because there's a distinct change now in the light, and as people are taking photos of each other and of us, their flashes are going off. There's a real change now, isn't there, Helen?
Definitely, definitely. It does seem to be much darker. It also feels much colder, doesn't it? I'm not sure if that's just because of the rain, but it does feel much colder. I've been roaming the crystal ball. It's still, I'm afraid, I think that's out the window today. Got my rain hat ready instead. But what I have been doing is looking or monitoring the weather right the way from 9 o'clock this morning, and I've been monitoring the temperature. You can see here, if we look at the red one, that's when we had that heavy shower and it dropped the temperature anyway. But you can now begin to see the temperature is gradually dropping away ever so slightly, only probably at the moment by about half a degree or so. But I think as we carry on towards totality, I think it will drop maybe by a degree or two. So that'll be interesting to see. Also looking at the wind. You know, I said we were looking for a gust in the wind.
Yeah.
Well, there have been peaks all along, obviously, as we've got the rain coming in. But maybe that was a little peak there. Maybe that was the peak due to the eclipse. And now the wind is beginning to die down a little bit. So that may be something to do with it. Pressure, well, we've got low pressure out to the west.
That's our problem.
It is our problem, and so I think today this really experiment is not going to work because the pressure just keeps on falling due to the low pressure coming in from the west, so it's being swamped by the normal local weather. And lastly, the radiation. Do you believe we're getting any sunlight through at the moment, Philippa? I know it seems unlikely, but we are still getting energy from the sun. But the interesting thing here, this is where it was originally. Obviously, we've had clouds coming across, but the energy is actually beginning to die down almost to zero now. So certainly as we go towards totality, as the moon goes right in front of the sun, then we will get down to zero and have no energy whatsoever. So there you go.
You know, the thing I find most ironic about this whole event is that this was meant to be the eclipse that was watched by the most people ever in Britain because of television and everything. And the whole thing seemed destined to be hidden from us all. Don't you think that's ironic, Michael?
You've got a very nice sense of irony, Philippa. We can now go to the Isles of Scilly, which of course are the westernmost part of the United Kingdom, and that's the picture there. John, look.
Yes, we've got about 5 minutes to go in the Isles of Scilly before
yeah,
totality
6:12
comes.
here, but 5 minutes there, yeah?
Yes, a bit further west, so
Yeah.
they get the shadow before us. Oh, that's really looking good. That's really looking good.
5 minutes to go. It's a good shot from the Isles of Scilly, eh?
Yes, if that cloud stays like that, then I think they should see quite an interesting corona through that cloud. I don't think that will worry them too much.
John has actually brought his lucky hat in here with a Blue Peter badge on it, so that's obviously why we can get pictures from the Isles of Scilly.
Very special hats, worked every time.
Anyway, enough of that. Look outside.
Oh,
actually,
yeah.
on this television picture inside here, it doesn't show it quite so well, but out there, when you go outside to look at the castle on Mount St. Michael, you can see how dark it is and how the clouds have gathered, but the crowds are there, looking out over there, taking the odd snapshot.
And there are some breaks in the cloud to the south. If they will hurry up, then Patrick might get one of those gaps in Falmouth as they drift across.
Okay. I think the street lights are coming on here in Penzance. They're automatic, I imagine, John, aren't they?
Yes.
You can see them there, look.
Yes. Some come on by timers, but a lot these days come on automatically as their sensors are triggered as they get towards dusk. And people at home have got to watch out now because their neighbour's security light may very well come on their garage, triggered by the folk across the road's cat or whatever.
And this is our best picture, John, isn't it? This is the picture from the Hercules.
Yes. Oh,
and imagining
that's really
that it's right over us. 4 minutes, just over 4 minutes, isn't it, to go to totality?
4 minutes here, and they're a little bit further west from us, so they will get it a bit earlier.
So a bit ahead of us, in fact.
Bit ahead of us.
And this, I think, is Alderney, and Jamie Theakston's under that one in Alderney. Jamie, you there?
Yes, Michael, we're here in Alderney. As you can see, we've got a great view here. There's a little bit of light cloud just blowing over us here. It's actually become remarkably cold. I'm joined, of course, by Dr. Chris Riley, BBC astronomer. Chris, it's getting quite eerie now here.
It is really eerie, Jamie. We've both got our coats on. There's a chill descended in the air. There's only a few % of the sun left, and it's just tantalizingly visible through a gap in the clouds right above our heads here. But the wind, I swear, has changed direction. I know Patrick doesn't believe this, but I think it has.
We've got, there's a gannet colony, of course, not far away from here. There were a lot of birds around earlier. They seem to have cleared. Is that a sense that it's getting darker?
Certainly, there seems to be a kind of hush that's descending over nature here as well, although the wind has got up. Everything else is pretty silent, really, so it's getting kind of spooky.
And the cloud cover, I mean, it's extraordinary now. I don't think I've ever seen clouds like this before. I mean, it's broken cloud, but it seems to be illuminated around the edges.
It's a real kind of mackerel sky, I think it's called, where you've got these kind of patches around the clouds that are illuminated, as you say, and as the temperature drops further, these clouds should shrink both in height and in width, so it might just clear up, and that gap that we can see the eclipse through now might just stay with us over totality.
Right, well, let's keep our fingers crossed. I know they've got 2 minutes 47 now until totality in Cornwall. Does that mean how long until we get totality here?
About 7 minutes 40 for us here, so we'll be about 5 minutes behind totality in Penzance with Michael.
Right, a real sense of excitement building here, Michael, but let's hand back to Cornwall.
Oh, 2 minutes 24, John, now to totality. It's really dark outside. And this is the Isles of Scilly. Now, if we've got 2 minutes and 17 seconds, they've only got just over a minute, haven't they, until totality?
They've got just over a minute, about a minute and 10 seconds from now. And we can see the crescent has thinned now. It's very, very thin. We can see the horns here are now beginning to draw in. And this is when your hands sweat. The hairs on the back of your neck really get tense. Here are the horns drawing in now, and then we're going to see this fade all the way down to a single point of light. I don't think we're going to get a very spectacular show of Bailey's beads as we go into totality.
We'll come back to that in a minute, John, but just here, look how dark it's got outside here.
Isn't it
at Marazion?
Absolutely wonderful. Wonderful.
It turns you on, does it, John?
It really does. And we just lost the picture there, but if we can get that back, then we'll see a plunge into totality in the Scillies in about 30 seconds.
Oh, right.
If we can get that back.
Can we still see the Scilly Islands, because we've got about 30 seconds to totality?
We've got about 15 seconds now.
15 seconds?
And so we've got 10 seconds to go. Here we are, single point of light, breaks into a couple of beads, disappears. Now they'll be able to see the corona. If they can't see it through the clouds, we're coming up here. Now
here's the Hercules, John, so...
Okay.
And they're about where we are, so what are we doing? We're about a minute away?
We've got a bit less than a minute, I think, to go. They're a bit to the west of us, and again we can see things thinning and the horns drawing in.
Great shouting going on outside here, and at the Radio 1 outing there.
Absolutely. Hope nobody gets dazzled by all the flashes that go off. Tremendous.
And here's the Hercules.
Here's the Hercules again. We can see the horns drawing in again, coming down to a single point light, about 30 seconds or so to go here.
People are yelling.
Now it is dark. See
what you mean.
The horizon to the south is still bright. We're looking out of the zone of totality there. Looks like a huge end of the world experience to the west. Still light towards Patrick and Falmouth. Isn't this absolutely wonderful? Now you're convinced this is what people come for.
It's extraordinary out here.
Here from the Hercules, we're beginning to see little beads forming at the end of the arc here as the last bit of sun is disappearing behind the moon. It's all breaking up now. into this final point of light. Do you see what I mean about the gloom descending?
It is quite extraordinary. Look at the atmosphere out
Now,
there.
here we've got a fascinating picture. Here's the sun disappearing, here are some Bailey's beads, and there is totality. We begin to see some prominences around the sun here.
And leave aside all the atmosphere and the hype, this is what the scientists are looking at as well, isn't it?
This is really wonderful. Now we've got midnight outside. Midnight at midday.
But
now
just a little bit of light on the far horizon.
Here's the corona now, this wonderful structure of the sun's atmosphere being twisted and contorted and heated by the sun's magnetic field up to several million degrees. The only time you can see it by eye.
So this is the time when you can actually see what the sun does.
Absolutely. I spent 30 years studying this outer atmosphere of the sun. For me,
it's a completely eerie sign. Well, it's totally dark outside here, apart from just a bit of light on the far horizon, which is outside the zone of totality, isn't it?
yes. That's because the total zone is so narrow.
Yeah.
We're looking out of the zone of totality. Now we're beginning to see the lightning in the west as the total shadow is now passing over us. We've got 2 or 3 more seconds to go here. Totality is now essentially over here. Daylight returns.
And it is. That's extraordinary, isn't it? You can see actually on the Hercules picture, you can see the light coming. Here you can see it actually on the horizon.
Absolutely. And now if we look to the east, we can see the shadow moving away. Patrick is probably about to come out of the shadow in Falmouth in about 5 seconds or so, and then the shadow is still heading eastwards. Totality.
This is the diamond ring, isn't it?
This is the diamond ring coming out. Isn't that beautiful? The most precious, the most elusive diamond that you will ever see. Now we're back with the filtered camera here, and now we can see the arc of the sun returning. Those were incredible pictures from the plane.
Did it do as much for you as it normally does, John, despite all the clouds?
Even unfortunately seeing it here on a monitor, well, you can see I'm still smiling. This has been absolutely super. And now the shadow's heading off over the channel.
It's heading towards Patrick Moore, isn't it?
It's left Patrick, it's now heading towards Alderney. They've got about a minute and a bit to go before totality.
Hang on a second, John. Let's see if we can see Patrick Moore. We can see how he reacted. Patrick, did you enjoy that?
Well, in a way I did. It was an eerie experience, and clearly the aircraft showed that there was a marvellous ground up. Down here, unfortunately, in St Andrew Head, we were under total cloud. The drop in the light level was quite amazing, more than I've ever known before, and the rise at the end, when the totality ended, was equally marked. But it was a strange, weird experience, one that I'm, in a way, glad to have been through, but very sorry we didn't see what was quite clearly a magnificent solar corona. You'll tie that up in our Sky at Night programme later on, but at the present moment I fear that we have to say that from here we didn't see the corona, but we did have a strange experience, and one that I think very few people will ever have again. So at least we have been through the last English total solar eclipse of the millennium.
So it was really atmosphere you got rather than anything scientific or astronomical, Patrick?
Well, we got something. We got the temperature drop, certainly, and the light drop. We got that, and some strange atmospheric effects too. A strange kind of breeze I've not come across before. We learnt something from it, but of course we didn't actually see it ourselves. And that's a great disappointment, but, well, we make the best of a bad job, and at least we saw something. We did have one tantalising view of the partial phase about 10 minutes earlier.
Patrick, thanks very much indeed. Well, there was extraordinary scenes outside here when the shadow passed over and went totally dark and everybody started screaming. Philippa's out there. What's the atmosphere like there now, Philippa?
Well, we're
even without the
teary.
sun.
We're very teary. Once in a lifetime, you had two, didn't you?
Yes.
It brought back a lot of memories, didn't it?
Yeah. Just went back in time.
You went back in time. It was darker then, you said.
Yeah.
But we were looking at the beach and people were hugging and kissing, and people have been drawing suns in the sand, and it's just a very magical experience, even though the whole place is covered in cloud.
Yeah. It's just like coming back to normal now.
Yeah.
Things, oh. The horizon over there was beautiful,
Wasn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
And the birds were flying all around.
Yeah.
I think down on the beach, I didn't hear any noise from the animals. I didn't hear any crickets start to chirp from up here.
It was just all the crowd of...
There was lots of whistling from the crowds, lots of people reactions, lots of people hugging and kissing, as I said. Michael, I don't know what Helen's doing down on the beach. We'll go and find out about her experiments later. Michael.
Okay, we'll come back to you. We can let you repair your makeup after all that tearing and crying. This is a picture from Alderney, I think, John, if you can see it from here.
Wonderful, because you can see the red prominences very clearly. Here's, this looks like third contact coming. There's the return of the sun.
And
just have a
ring.
quick glimpse at those red splots. Those are prominences in the solar atmosphere. We've now come to the diamond ring effect, and as it grows, can you see little blips on the end of it? Those are particular craters on the moon being illuminated.
And this is the final eclipse on UK soil from Alderney, isn't it?
Now it's left the UK, yes, and we're giving it to the Europeans to have a bit of fun with. And they can play with it and then post it off further eastwards.
How much can scientists get from that? You said, there's the prominences, but is this one of those rare opportunities to see what they actually are?
It's a rare opportunity to see them directly from the ground, and from the ground we can deploy very much more sophisticated instruments. We've obviously got spacecraft which aren't actually in orbit around the Earth, they're sort of orbiting the Sun, in fact, that give us some of the really super pictures in different sorts of wavelengths.
Well, John, thanks. We were seeing what the site was from Alderney. We can go to Alderney and see what the people in the Channel Islands made of it. Jamie.
Oh dear, I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like that. You can probably hear the crowd behind us. Did you enjoy that? Chris, I mean, remarkable scenes then.
Jamie, we've just stood in the shadow of the moon. I mean, I can't say more than that. It was travelling over our heads at 2,000 miles an hour. Everything went dark. There was this eerie twilight around us, 360 degrees. I'm so moved. It was the most amazing experience of my life.
Now, it's brightening up rapidly now, but explain to... I mean, it literally came right across the channel at a rate, well, 2,000 miles an hour. And we can actually see that. I mean, couldn't you?
You could literally see the sky darkening behind us here, and this huge wall of darkness rushing over our heads and out, as John says, towards France now. The last eclipse on UK soil for 91 years is over.
Unbelievable. Day broke during the day. I mean, it really was one of the most exciting things I've seen. So now it's gone, it's off to France.
It is. We'll be following it further on there over its course as it hurries across, even as far as Iran and on to India over the next hour or so.
Right, extraordinary scenes. Thanks so much. Let's go back to Cornwall. Back to you, Michael.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Let's have a look outside now and see what's actually happening there.
Well, we can see the horizon is now light.
We can see it now, but let's have a look at it during totality, because we were actually concentrating, weren't we, John? Mostly, and obviously, on the shot out of the Hercules. But the atmosphere out here was the thing that kept distracting me.
It really was spectacular. I mean, it really was the middle of the night.
Yeah, it was. Look at all those lights flashing. People trying to capture it, ruining it, I suppose, by those flashlights.
I always love people that take them over. Too late now, yes. I mean, it's really midnight darkness there. It really is absolutely amazing. And this super lighting effect to the south. If you tried to set it up that way, I doubt if you could.
If you were a film director, it'd cost you millions to do that, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, do you want to go and see the 2001 eclipse?
Well, I don't know, I might be tempted. I wasn't tempted before, but it certainly was
quite... But you are now.
Yeah, I'd like to see without having to gas to you about it. But if we look outside now, normality returns. A grey August day in Cornwall out there on the beach.
But to be quite honest, I mean, even though we didn't actually see the corona ourselves here, the memory of this is going to stay with people for the rest of their lives, just as it did with those people that saw it in 1927.
OK, let's go out on that beach now to Philippa and to Helen and to see what those experiments actually did and what the weather's going to do.
Well, I have to say, it's warmed up hugely. Thank goodness, because it was about time.
At long last.
As for your experiments, how did it all go?
Do you know, it's actually fantastic. Let me show you what happened. Over here, you can see the temperature did actually drop during totality. There was the peak of it there, and it actually started dropping down as we got through to the total eclipse. Perhaps more dramatically, which is really great as a weather person to see. You know, I told you the low pressure may not work. It kept on falling. The pressure, look, from 11 o'clock onwards, 11:10, it started rising. Not a lot, 0.1 of a millibar, which is not a lot, but it is significant because that wouldn't have been happening due to the normal weather conditions today.
Right.
So that's quite amazing. The radiation, how much sunshine we were getting through, the power of it, look at that, went right down from about 50 watts per square metre down to 0.
Yep.
And now, as you can see, it is beginning to even out and come back up again as well. So that was quite an interesting thing. The wind, well, the wind speed, it did certainly drop during totality just a little bit, and you can see it's now picked up once again. We're beginning to see the gusts picking up once more. So in all, it's been really interesting. I'm fascinated by it. It was great.
I have to go back and talk about whether our girls heard their Spanish radio. Hi, girls. Hi.
Yep.
Let me just... Right, come on. Did you hear them saying hello?
No.
Oh, no! Why not?
Well, it did become clearer, but because there's so much equipment and everything, it didn't say it, kind of.
There was a lot of noise out here as well.
Yeah.
All of you lot were making a lot of noise.
That's kind of why.
So you think that didn't help? But you did hear a little bit, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, so the experiment actually worked in that you heard Spanish radio?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Jolly well done, girls. And I want to catch you up with the animals if I can while we're out here. I've got time, I think, yes? Fantastic. Did the dogs howl?
No.
No, the dogs didn't howl. What did they do?
They didn't do very much at all, really. There was a lot of people about, and the guy's okay anyway. He just sat and looked and was interested in what was going on. The dog didn't really affect him at all.
He's just having an exciting day and enjoying himself, isn't he? But come here, because I do have exclusive news from the cricket enclosure here in the tent on the beach. The crickets did, in fact, chirrup. So that attitude that they had at the beginning of the programme of, oh, we're not going to be impressed at all, they did, in fact, chirrup. And Sam, our snowy owl here, okay, Sam, show us your eyes, because these eyes apparently went huge. Don't have my finger off, will you? These eyes apparently went huge during the eclipse. The chickens did absolutely nothing, and the other owls weren't very impressed either, I don't think. So all in all on the beach, I would say we've had a pretty successful time of it with all of our experiments. And whatever, the atmosphere was just fantastic. Everyone enjoyed themselves. Everyone's a little calm now. There's a kind of an anti-climax feeling. Everyone's calmed down. Michael.
Thanks, Philip, and your owls. Well, of course, the eclipse is going now across Europe, heading for eventually the Bay of Bengal, and we're going to get some pictures now from Reims in France. Now they got a clear shot, and they're having a big celebration. Look.
Okay, so we're sort of resetting again.
Yeah, I know, you're resetting the clock.
Resetting the clock. Wow, they're having a good time. And here we're seeing the last piece of sun again disappearing.
It's an endless replay, isn't it?
Oh, there's some wonderful beads being formed on the end here. Just watch as this now shrinks down. Here's a beautiful pink prominence. We're gradually chopping this up into separate little babies.
Oh, look, there's the beads.
This is wonderful. And now it all disappears, and hopefully somebody will take a filter off, and
they're going mad. That's the main square in Reims, isn't it? And there it is, totality.
Here we are, this is totality. Now we're beginning to see the corona. It's a very busy corona because we're coming up to the maximum of the sun's activity cycle. So this is really it's faint, pearly light. About the brightness of the moon, in fact.
Well, they've been a bit luckier than us in France by the cathedral there.
Here we can see the prominences again.
Oh yes, wonderful shot. Well, anyway, let's come back here and to those experiments that we were doing out there on the beach. We better tie them up to Philippa, to Helen and Francisco out there on the beach.
Thank you very much. Well, Francisco, how does that rate in your eclipse viewing?
It was a great experience. We couldn't see the corona, but we saw a beautiful landscape still here. We saw the shadow of the moon rushing from there above us and all the crowds shouting, and it was amazing. And to see this orange light around St. Michael's Mount, it was amazing. Really, really impressive eclipse.
It's actually quite amazing watching you because you came so agitated. You were running around like this, checking all your filters. Do you think you will have learnt anything from viewing this eclipse from the Earth?
Yes, well, we saw some images from the aircraft, and they were big prominences, and we saw a very roundish corona. We will discuss that tonight, I think. And it was a very interesting eclipse, almost typical of a maximum period of solar activity, which is coming to that in a couple of years' time. I'm sure that people in the rest of Europe have learned a lot about this eclipse. Yes.
Okay. Francisco, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's
I
a
know
pleasure.
it would have been better for you to be somewhere where it wasn't cloudy.
No, it's all right. It's all
been
right.
great here on the beach. I don't know if we've got time to go to Radio 1 to see how they're going, or if we're going straight back to Michael. You'll soon see.
Okay, we are. We're going to take a very quick look at Radio 1 to see how they're going. Oh, we lost Radio 1 for the moment. I hope you noticed they were rubbing each other down there. Poor old Francisco came in his shorts and everything this morning, being terribly optimistic, and he's definitely put some more clothes on. Parky, you were, as a scientist, interested in the corona, weren't you?
Yes, it is absolutely remarkable to be able to see the outer atmosphere of a star, and having this phenomenal coincidence, because it isn't going to last forever, a few million years, we won't get any more total eclipses, to actually see this outer atmosphere. And here we can see now, this is the corona. We can see the prominences poking out around here, and we can see this very busy corona. This we don't actually understand how it gets so hot, and this is one of the great challenges.
What is it, 1 million degrees centigrade, isn't it?
A few million degrees,
A few million, yeah.
And you can see these streamers coming out. There's a beautiful helmet streamer there, as the field shapes the material, chaps it, and then thunders waves into it to heat it up.
So leave aside the mysticism. This is the science, isn't it?
This is the science, and this, to me, I can't describe it. The first eclipse I saw, it was a life's ambition, and now to see it again.
This one's pretty close, then.
Super.
Parky, thanks very much indeed. Mark, thanks very much indeed. Philippa, Helen, Francisco on the beach, thanks. That's all from us here in Cornwall for now. But please join us again at 11:35 this evening on BBC One for Total Eclipse Highlights, when we report on the impact of the eclipse from all over the southwest and from along the whole track as it crosses Europe, the Middle East and India. The eclipse here, of course, is still not over. It remains partial until the moon finally uncovers the whole disk of the sun, and that's at about 12:30, making the duration of the whole event 2 hours and 35 minutes. But the moments that I think all of us here will take home with us, are those 2 minutes of curious stillness and darkness when everyone could hardly believe what was happening. Goodbye from all of us here, and we'll leave you with that magical moment once again.
The Eclipse Forum is being frequented by several of the top solar scientists this week. To find out what they have to say, visit BBC Online at www.bbc.co.uk/eclipse.
There's one experience you won't want to miss this summer.
Imagine being able to interact with the environment.
It's quite simple. Look.
Just the usual.
Presented by Kate.
The moment millions waited for. The last total eclipse of the millennium. Britain comes to a standstill for the eclipse. And millions more around the world watch in awe.
Hello, and first, where were you just after 11 o'clock this morning as the shadow of the moon crossed the Earth? The last total solar eclipse this century was experienced by millions in Britain and around the world. Newsround has been out and about for the event that will go down in history as the moment when day turned into night. Children on the Isles of Scilly were among the first in Britain to experience the total eclipse, where Matthew's been all day, and Lizo's in the southwest of England at Falmouth in Cornwall. Lizo, what was the eclipse like where you are?
Well, Kate, I know it's hard to believe that this morning the beach behind me here was packed with thousands of people, and I think it's fair to say that no one who was here at 11 minutes past 11 really regretted making the trip despite the gloomy weather. I must say I got a bit carried away during the eclipse. It was incredible. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. But 12 hours ago, no one was really sure what to expect. From first light, people gathered on the beach and on the hillside. Everyone was hoping the weather forecasts were all wrong, but no one was sure if the total eclipse would prove a total washout. Well, with just a few minutes to go until the total eclipse, there are still people coming in here. There's thousands of people around. It feels like the whole of Cornwall's crammed in here, but nobody's quite sure what's going on. They're just wandering around, not sure what they're going to see. But then the doubts began to fade, and so did the light. This is it, it's gone totally dark. I've never seen anything like this ever. On the screen you can actually see the wonderful ring around the sun as we have total totality, as the moon is completely covering the sun. And now it looks like it's starting to get a bit light again. We've had the darkest time of it, but it's been incredible. Even though people couldn't actually see what was going on because of the cloud level, the way it went dark was so dramatic, so exciting, that I don't think anyone's going to go away from here feeling disappointed.
It was excellent. I really enjoyed it. It was darker than I expected. Scary, dead scary. Really, really, really scary.
And what about the young Eclipse fans we talked to yesterday?
It was amazing. Despite the cloud, it was still fantastic. It still got dark, and it was so emotional. People were jumping about, screaming, and it was really great.
Now, how did the experiments go, though?
Well, they were brilliant, and apart from, because they didn't affected by the rain, the best one was this one, a huge valley in our light intensity graphs. Absolutely amazing graph. We're really pleased with this.
With many eclipse watchers facing long journeys home, soon it was hard to believe this had been the site of such an amazing event. Now, after months of excitement and waiting, the eclipse is over and Falmouth's getting back to normal. But everywhere you go, people have got incredible smiles on their faces. There's an incredible happy atmosphere because whatever their age is, they know they've taken part in something that hardly anyone here has had the chance to experience before, and they know they'll probably never see again. Well, a lot of people are already on their way home after the eclipse, many of them still sitting in cars in traffic jams. But everyone we spoke to said that the eclipse made a massive impression on them. In fact, some of them were so impressed, they said they're already saving up to go and see the next total eclipse, which will hit Africa in the year 2001.
Thanks, Lizo. Live now to Matthew, who saw the eclipse in the Isles of Scilly. Matthew, what was it like there?
It was amazing. You know, if you're watching a film or a TV programme, something like that, and you know something's about to happen, but you really don't know what it's going to be like, it was like that. I definitely felt this sort of shiver of excitement pass up my spine when the moon passed in front of the sun. It all went dark, like Lizo said, and you could see one or two stars up in the sky in the middle of the day. It was incredible. A lot of people come on their summer holidays here to the Isles of Scilly, and the people that I've spoken to who are here on their holidays have said that this has just been the icing on the cake for the whole holiday.
The Isles of Scilly are a popular holiday spot. They're made up of hundreds of islands, but only about 150 children live here, and they've been looking forward to being the first people to see the total eclipse.
It'll be really eerie because in the middle of the day it'll go dark. It'll seem quite scary.
I want to see it, but I'm just worried about my eyes if I look into it.
It's the last of the millennium and it's most probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Of course, the one thing you can't count on is picture postcard weather. We're a couple of hours before the eclipse now, and it's not looking terribly promising. Fingers crossed. 9:45, and slowly more and more people are making their way up to the island's Star Castle Hotel. It's a good place to watch the eclipse from, and everyone is still amazingly optimistic. Then, after about an hour, it starts to get colder. There's a shiver in the air. Suddenly, from out in the Atlantic, the moon's shadow moves over us. Then, after 1 minute and 40 seconds, it's all over. And that's how quickly it all happens. What did you think about it?
Well, I thought it was really good, especially when the moon shadow came rushing towards you.
It didn't really live up to my expectations, but it's still quite good.
Yes, there was a lot of clouds and I did get a very good view.
Stephanie, you were worried at looking at the sun, weren't you?
Yeah. I watched it on TV until it was total eclipse. Then I went outside and it was really amazing.
OK, thanks very much. This is Matthew Price.
And his friends reporting for Newsround from the Isles of Scilly.
So as you can see now, it's all a bit of an anticlimax. It's just been raining. The crowds have all left this area. And I guess we're going to have to wait until 2090 for the next total eclipse to hit Britain. Back to you, Kate.
Thanks, Matthew. Now a look at some more of the day's top eclipse stories. And RAF Hercules made sure, even though it was cloudy, people still got a good view of today's big event. The BBC and the RAF joined forces above the clouds to film pictures which were beamed live to millions of television sets. 2 special Concorde flights, each carrying 100 passengers, chased the eclipse as it crossed the Atlantic towards the UK. The supersonic jets travelled high in the sky to give passengers a 6-minute viewing of the big event. And people across the country took a break to catch a glimpse of the eclipse. Millions of people left their workplaces to go outside, bringing Britain almost to a standstill. Well, Britain wasn't the only place to witness a total eclipse. After leaving Cornwall, the moon's shadow sped east at more than 1,500 miles per hour, wowing crowds across Europe, amazing those in the Middle East, and giving the people of Asia the final glimpse of this spectacular event. Here's a quick rundown of the shadow's journey.
In northern France, the sun worshippers were on the beach, but there was no sunbathing today. In Germany, Stuttgart was the best place to catch the eclipse. This was the view from the space station Mir as the moon cast its shadow on Earth. Back on Earth, the Pope cast his eyes to the heavens using specially strengthened glass. The celebrations were hot in Hungary. Some saw it in style. Romania experienced the longest eclipse, 2 minutes and 23 seconds. Many Muslim countries saw it as a moment for prayer. And India was the last place on Earth to see the eclipse.
Wow, what a day. I'm going to have a rest after all that. See you again tomorrow, live at 5. Goodbye.
This Sunday.
This is Russia's very own Hannibal Lecter. He killed and cannibalized 56 people. It's thought this man is responsible for 100 murders. Could you have spotted the serial killer before he committed a crime? This man says he can. And what's more, he claims he can cure them of the urge to kill. Inside Story investigates the Russian Cracker. Tomorrow at 9:30 on BBC One.
Chasing the eclipse across the globe now, BBC One pays its last visit to Cornwall for the day's highlights with Michael Burke.
Hello and welcome back to Marazion in our beautiful setting opposite the now floodlit St Michael's Mount. Just a couple of hours ago, day turned to night for the second time today. The sun first went out this morning when mainland Britain saw its first total eclipse for 72 years. It was an awe-inspiring sight at an awe-inspiring time, 11 minutes past 11 on the 11th of August. We'll be looking back at the most magical and moving moments. We'll also be finding out how people marked this rare event, from a full Druid wedding to an exclusive eclipse-watching trip aboard Concorde. And we'll be tracking the eclipse as it raced away from Britain to the continent on an epic 2-hour journey across some of the most heavily populated regions on Earth.
Well, they say seeing a total eclipse is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but I'll be talking later to someone who's now seen two. 89-year-old Bertha Warren also saw the last eclipse on the British mainland way back in 1927. She's here with her great-granddaughter, Danielle.
And with me to help make sense of what we've seen today are three astronomers with a wealth of experience of total eclipses. Patrick Moore, of course, and alongside him, Francisco Diego, who's helping us out earlier on today, and also John Parkinson over there, who gave us many an insight. Now, Patrick, you didn't see the last one in Britain, did you? But you've seen an awful lot since then.
Yes, my first in 1954 and my last in 1998. And believe me, every eclipse is different, and a total eclipse of the sun is the most magnificent sight in all nature.
Francisco, you're actually a professional eclipse chaser, aren't you?
I saw my first eclipse in 1970, and since then I have been developing photographic techniques and video techniques now to record this magnificent event.
John, for those people who don't know actually what happened today, just give us a quick reminder. What did we actually see?
Well, let me show you with a model that we've got here. We had today this amazing lineup of the sun here lining up perfectly with the moon to cast a shadow onto the earth. This wonderful, amazing coincidence of sizes, because the sun is so much bigger than the moon, but it's further away. And this time, the total shadow came to us here.
Patrick, we were very lucky, weren't we, in many ways, because this eclipse actually came across populated areas.
So often the moon shadow crosses sea or inaccessible areas, but this one, as you say, crossed very densely populated areas. It went across England, of course, into Europe, and then to France, Germany, Austria, down to Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and then finally ended in India, round about sunset. Very densely populated areas, so we were well lucky there.
OK, but first we're going to concentrate on the British leg of that journey. While it all began in the Atlantic, the eyes of the world were on Britain, and first landfall in the Isles of Scilly, followed less than a minute later by Cornwall and parts of Devon. Meanwhile, the rest of the UK, weather permitting of course, would see a partial eclipse, with the moon covering just part of the sun. So let's look now at how events unfolded this morning, as the greatest natural show on Earth swept into Britain. Just after 6 a.m. we witnessed a beautiful sunrise. Slowly Cornwall woke up to eclipse day, and with the dawn came the cues.
Oh, we got about 4:30, the alarm went off. Insane.
Unfortunately, the viewing conditions in Cornwall were far from ideal.
There's a lot of cloud up the western side, rain coming out over the Isles of Scilly, up into Southern Ireland as well.
All we need now is for these wretched clouds to clear away and give us a nice clear sky.
It was the same across the southwest. Everywhere was overcast. Jamie Theakston chased the sun to the Channel Islands.
The weather's looking a little bit patchy, to be honest, but the Eclipse Rapid Response Unit here in Alderney is ready to go.
But we were sure of a clear view above the clouds. An RAF Hercules was our aerial camera platform. At 9:57, the Hercules camera recorded these stunning pictures of first contact. On the ground, Helen Young planned to observe the weather during totality.
It doesn't matter that it's cloudy, it doesn't matter that it's wet, because the temperature will still drop. As the moon goes across the sun, it will get colder. So this is a temperature sensor here. Also got an anemometer which will measure the wind speed.
As Cornwall was blanketed in cloud, most of the country enjoyed clear skies, from London to Newcastle, Norwich to Bristol. Outside totality, everyone was enjoying the view. Fortunately, Alderney might just remain clear. High above the Earth, the Mir space station tracked the moon's shadow towards Britain. Then at 10:45 in Cornwall...
We're beginning to see over to the west now, even out of our window. We can begin to see the clouds darkening over there to the west. That's the shadow, the Sirius shadow now, on its way towards us.
A few minutes later, the street lights of Penzance came on. An eerie dusk was engulfing Mounts Bay. At 33,000 feet, much higher than planned because of exceptionally high cloud, the Hercules steered a course for totality. First the diamond rings, then the corona. At the Radio 1 road show, they watched on a big screen. Everyone was excited. The Channel Islands saw prominences.
We got totality in Alderney.
And then came Bailey's beads. But all too quickly it was over. A new diamond ring appeared as the moon left the sun's disk. Philippa's out there. What's the atmosphere like there now, Philippa?
Well, we're
Even without the
teary.
sun.
We're very teary.
Did you enjoy that? Chris, I mean, remarkable scenes then.
Jamie, we've just stood in the shadow of the moon. I mean, I can't say more than that. It was travelling over our heads at 2,000 miles an hour. Everything went dark. There was this eerie twilight around us, 360 degrees. I'm so